haven't really shown y'all what it looks like back here, but all of the leaves have fallen. The trees are bare. We're definitely going into winter. It's definitely the mush behind the magic. All of the leaves are on the floor, and because it's been raining, like it's just like wet leaves on the deck. It's not pretty. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Alicia. Today we're going to be talking about horror novellas. If you follow my Goodreads, it's no surprise to you that I've been reading a lot of horror lately. I don't know why, I was just drawn to horror these past couple of weeks. It might be because we just left spooky season, maybe because it was fall and everything was getting gloomy and cold and wet, maybe because we're going into winter and everything's dying around me. Who knows, but I've been really enjoying the horror genre, specifically horror novellas. I don't think I've read many like full-size novels when it comes to the horror genre. I've realized that I like to consume horror in a novella format. I just think that it's very succinct, very precise. Every word has to matter and every word has to be intentional. And when it's done right, it's just amazing. It's fantastic. So today I thought I'd go ahead and talk to you about 3 horror novellas that I read within the last couple of weeks. There was another one that I read that I already talked about during my October wrap-up, which was The Murders of Molly Southbourne, so I will go ahead and link that up in the cards. That way you can hear me talk about that novella in case you're interested. The first novella that I want to talk about is Nothing But Blackened Teeth, and this is by Cassandra Khaw. This is the one that I actually finished the most recently. I finished it a couple of days ago. This one I would categorize into the good category. So Nothing But Blackened Teeth is a creepy, atmospheric, haunted house tale with a focus on mental health and on fractured friendships or relationships. And actually a lot of the focus of the plot is on the character dynamics and on the character friendships, and there's also this looming question of, is the haunted house sort of affecting these friendship dynamics, or is the strife between these characters an inevitable result of fractured friendships? Another element that is explored is mental health, specifically with our main character Kat. She's struggling and battling depression. We learn throughout the novella that she might have attempted to commit suicide. So overall, Nothing But Blackened Teeth has a lot of the themes that I really enjoy to explore. Have I talked about what this book is about? I haven't, so let's backtrack a little bit. So in this book we're following 5 characters. We have Kat, who is our main character and who the story is told through. We also have Philip, we have Faiz and Nadia, who are getting married, and these 5 friends are actually in Japan as part of the destination wedding for Faiz and Nadia. And then our last character is a latecomer to the party, and that was Lynn. And so we find our 5 characters in this Heian era mansion in Japan. The Heian era in Japan was this golden era between 795 and 1185. This mansion comes with its own history. There was a bride who was previously going to get married, but her groom died on the way to the wedding, and so she was buried in the foundation, eternally waiting for her groom. And in the meantime, every year a girl was buried alive in the walls to accompany her while she waits for her groom. So we have this very creepy old giant mansion that has a very dark history attached to it. And here we have 5 characters, each who have their own tolls and who are struggling to mend their friendships. And really throughout the novella we get insights into the different fractured elements of their friendship. So let's talk about what I like. The writing. There's this beautiful stylistic prose. It's just delectable. You don't find it throughout the entire story. You definitely have pockets of the stylistic prose. I actually want to read to you a passage from the actual story because I just found the prose is so beautiful. The interior didn't smell like it had people here, not for a long time, and smelled instead like such old buildings do, green and damp, dark and hungry, hollow as a stomach that forgotten what it was like to eat. I also really much enjoyed the Japanese folklore elements that were embedded throughout the story. In general, I just love learning about different cultures and I love folk tales, so I just love that little element that was sprinkled on there. But I think the winning element for me was that creepy, airy, atmospheric feel of this vast and hungry house. That is the thing that I enjoyed most about this novella, was the atmosphere. One thing that I do want to mention, and this is not something that bothers me, but I know it's something that bothers other people, is that it did have Japanese terminology. Now, it wasn't filled with Japanese terminology. There were some words here and there that were in Japanese, and even a sentence that keeps repeating. And I know sometimes it bothers people when there's no definition that's given, but it's a word here and there. You can easily look it up, figure out the context, and then move on. So let's talk about the things that I didn't like. A big reason I only rated this book as good is because the characters are very unlikable. And I'm someone that likes morally gray characters. I love books with morally gray characters, but there was just something about these characters that I didn't quite enjoy. And a big focus of the plot is on these character dynamics, on these character friendships. So for me to not like them really took me out of the story. Another element that I didn't like had a little bit to do with the writing. Even though there are these beautifully written passages, I think the combination of that writing style with the dialogue between characters, which is very contemporary, that juxtaposition, it just didn't work for me. So much so that it felt like we had these very vibrant and atmospheric and beautiful scenes, and then you're sort of taken out of that little pocket and the story continues through dialogue, and then you're placed into another very atmospheric and beautiful and airy scene. And because of that, these different scenes that we get throughout the storyline felt disjointed to me. And the effect that that really had on me is that the pace just felt unbalanced. So the story was already feeling a little bit weird in the pacing, and then the end just felt rushed. I kind of wish the author would have made this into a novel, because then I feel like some of those pacing issues would have been taken care of. Overall, very good story. Beautiful prose. Definitely one that if it sounds interesting to you and you don't mind some of the stuff that I already mentioned, you should give it a try. It's really going to be subjective though on the characters, just because really the main pain point for me were the characters. I just couldn't root for them. I just didn't like them. They were just very unlikable for me. The next novella that I want to talk about is called Eartheater by Dolores Reyes, and this is a translated work. I read it in English. She is an Argentinian author, and this was translated by Julia Sanchez. So this is one that I would actually put into the great category, and this is a difficult novella to pin down. Eartheater has elements of horror, of speculative fiction, magical realism, literary fiction, but I wanted to include it in this video because one of the things that I really enjoy in horror, more so than being scared or, feeling creeped out, are the themes. I really love the way that horror explore themes, and this is a theme heavy book and one that I think is executed very beautifully. So if you're someone that likes horror because you want to be creeped out or you want to be scared, this is not going to be the novella for you. It's a very achingly beautiful slow novella that is equally depressing. It's rooted in real world problems with themes of gender violence, femicide, and violence against women. So in this novella we follow an unnamed narrator, and she is located in an unnamed Argentinian slum. At the beginning of the book, she is attending her mother's funeral and she compulsively decides to eat dirt. And through consuming this dirt, she is able to see the horrific way in which her mother died. And so as people begin to realize that she has this gift, she has women and families coming to her asking her to eat dirt in order to find out what happened to their missing daughters. And this is amidst the time where women are going missing, where gender violence is rampant and is the norm, unfortunately. Just women are being killed left and right and disappearing and going missing, and these women and these mothers and these families just want to find out what happened to their children. So like I mentioned, there are a lot of themes that are touched upon here. One of them is this girl, this unnamed narrator, having to grow up too quickly and too fast. Right from her mother's funeral, she realizes the danger and the peril that women face in Argentina and how that disproportionately affects women and kids. There's also this duality in which she's seen as a witch and she's feared, but people also want her help in order to find these missing children, these missing girls. And then you have this other theme in which women are rendered powerless because there's a lot of violence against women and women are going missing, and the police aren't really doing anything to find them, anything to fix this. But yet our unnamed narrator is taking this role of not a detective per se, because she's not a detective, but she's helping be that missing link that is missing and really providing relief to these families who just want to know what happened to their kids. Even though it's very dark, it's also very beautiful, but also very depressing. It's very short. It's also a little bit over 100 pages. If you like more theme-driven book, this is one that I highly recommend. I would also say this is a feminist book because missing women and femicide is a feminist issue. So if you're looking for a feminist book, I would also recommend this one. The last novella that I wanted to talk about during this video is by far my favorite, and this was Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones, and this one I would categorize into the excellent category. This was one that I jumped in without any expectations. I didn't really even know what this novella was about. I ended up reading Mapping the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones last month, and I absolutely loved it. So I was like, yep, I'm gonna pick up more books by him. And since I loved his writing in the novella format, I thought, let me go ahead and pick up another novella by him before reading a full-size novel. So Night of the Mannequins is told in a first-person narrative. In case you don't like first person, stay away. So one thing that I do want to say right off the bat, because I guess the title can be a little bit misleading, Night of the Mannequins. I was reading some reviews where people thought that this was going to be like an invasion of mannequins. That's not what this is. It is a slower psychological horror novella. It's a very quiet, slow-paced novella that starts to build up into this very dynamic and very fast ending. It's also filled with a lot of witty dialogue and a lot of humor embedded throughout, but the humor is really specific, and it's either going to be humor that you enjoy or humor that you don't, especially since we're in the mind of our main character for the entirety of the novella. And so in this one, we follow Sawyer, and Sawyer and his friends end up finding this mannequin one summer in the river, and so they bring it out of the river, they name it Manny, and they start to dress it up and take it along for like rides and stuff. Basically, Manny is part of the gang, you know, he is their friend, but you know, teenagers are teenagers, and so Manny ends up being forgotten until he is brought out to play this prank on this theater manager. So one of the friends works at the theater, and she ends up sneaking the rest of her friends in, and they get in trouble, so they're like, let's play this prank on this theater manager. How funny would it be if he just finds a mannequin in the theater? But the prank ends up going wrong, and so Sawyer feels responsible to right this wrong and to cause the least amount of destruction as possible. That's really all I can give you about the plot without spoiling any of it. It is a very short novella, again a little bit over 100 pages, reads very fast. If you like psychological horror that is slightly bizarre and a little bit witty and humorous, this is one that I would give a chance to. If you like unreliable narrators, this is also for you. And Sawyer is the type of main character where we know he's gonna do fucked up shit, and you see him doing fucked up shit, but you still can't help but root for him in a way, which really just makes me want to explore that within myself, how I am willing to root for people that do fucked up shit. Anyways, so this is where we get into that part where I mentioned earlier where I love morally gray characters. Another thing that I do want to add about this one in particular, and just about the novellas that I've read by Stephen Graham Jones, is that his books and that his novellas so far really go into those deep, disturbing crevices of the human mind and really explores that. So he doesn't shy away from that at all. The one thing that I may not have enjoyed as much with Night of the Mannequins is that the ending is quite bizarre. There's no other way for me to put it. I didn't really have expectations of where I thought this book was gonna go, because there was just not twist left and right, but I just never know what Stephen Graham Jones is going to throw at us next. So I didn't really have an expectation, but it was a little bit bizarre, a little bit unbelievable per se. So I don't really know how I feel about the ending, but I do have to say that it didn't detract from my overall experience of reading the novella. So those were the 3 horror novellas that I read recently. I briefly wanted to take a moment to say how thankful I am for all of you and for all of you who watch my videos. I just feel so supported, and I just can't believe that y'all are here watching my videos. I just feel really thankful, so thank you. And so I would love to get to know y'all better. So if you've made it this far, tell me a creepy story, something that happened to you that is just really creepy. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Bye.